Hello, welcome to my channel for Evolved Humans. I am Ms. Day. Okay, so right at the beginning of the reading, I heard an old Faith Hill song, which was like, "If my heart had wings, I would run to you." Two things with that. When I first heard it, it's like I felt like somebody was looking back because like a past loved one, like they lost a spouse, it feels like maybe. And then there's also another feeling of someone who is looking back at someone or multiple people that they let go and walked away from by choice. I think you had to. So before I started, I went outside and I was like, I wanted to see if there were any specific messages really quickly for this reading. And I got this odd feeling of like the word settling feels big. And it seems like there's a difference between settling and changing plans. So I even thought about like when we're unhappy, how difficult it is to see beautiful things like out here because of how we're feeling in here. And a lot of things happened at once where it's like, I feel like the word settling applies to your whole life. If this reading is for you, it feels pretty personal. It's pretty deep. So, okay, so it's almost like you've made a decision. I pictured someone too that had decided on solitude, and it's for all the right reasons. But it also feels like though you decided on solitude, you've left something in the past. It feels like you've lost something along the way, like something was left behind, and it shouldn't be. Because I think that, okay, it's actually pretty neat because the word settling is overlaying the whole thing. But what to do about it is kind of like louder, which I think is really comforting. So at first, like the song that came into my mind, the past, it feels like this reading is very loudly for creatives, for a creator, talented. When you've put your mind to something in the past, you got really good at something and you let it go. It feels like something was let go. And it's not just, this is so weird because it's like I've never seen it quite this way. So it's a neat perspective. And I feel like they're actually trying to help you evolve your perspective because I feel like, okay, in some readings in the past, I've talked about those of you who have let people go to a point of being secluded, being kind of like feeling isolated and alone, and sort of like thinking that and sort of protecting yourself that way, where you're not experiencing negative things happening in relationships because you just don't have them, or because you don't have new ones, or because you don't actively evolve the ones you've got. And that's where the feeling of settling, it feels more like a stagnation type of feeling, like a lack. Okay. When I first got ready for the reading, I thought about someone who, it's like you changed your plans at some point in a really big way, maybe even a few times, like abruptly, and it was like whole life changes. And like the message right away was that there's a difference between changing your plans and settling. Changing your plans is not supposed to land you in a settled state, in the negative way. So when I think of changing plans, like when I'm talking about it in this reading, whoever you are, you're such a strong-willed individual. Like, you're super strong-willed. And I think you see very clearly. And I think when something is brought to your attention, you're like, oh, got it. And like when you know better, you choose to adapt to it. Like you can push yourself through it. You can tame yourself. And the reason that's important is because I think that you need to there's like a taming that needs to happen, but it's really releasing something that isn't a part of your future, but it's also like it's not a part of your plans now. So it seems like you're accountable for making your decisions. You're accountable for your missteps and being responsible for the outcomes in your life. And I don't even think that you're carrying any like, nah, I did a bad job or look where I ended up. It doesn't seem like that. But there is a feeling of wanting more, needing more. And since you're not sure of what more is anymore, because of the changed plans, it's like you're looking back at things that were never good enough to begin with. And so that's why it made me think of settled, because it's like the feeling is sort of, when I first heard it in my head, like just the word settled, it made me picture in a relationship, like let's say that you're in a really crap relationship and you have the opportunity to either leave it or go in another direction. And it's like you change your plans from, okay, I'm going to be able to do this awesome thing that's an awesome outcome in my future. And then when you are not able to experience it with that person, your plans change, but it's like it can give it a negative weight, like a negative pull down, where it's like, oh, the plans changed, or I can't do that anymore. And when I was thinking of the word settled and being different from changing your plans, that's like what they want to project at you. It is that you're not supposed to change your plans and be less happy than the original plans were going to make you. You still want to reach for the happiness, like same level of happiness, just different plans. So you're settling. Like, I don't know who needs this. It feels so loud. You know that you're settling if you are not experiencing the same level of happiness that you wanted with the other plans. So but it's like all about you. I know I'm talking like, oh, you let somebody go, but it feels like you let a big part of you go. And I think that it's a mistake. Like, it's a mistake when we think that creativity is not, this is something weird, but like, you know how a lot of people are really active in their youth? And they're really like, I did dance when I was little, or, I was a star athlete, and now I sit and do Netflix and chill, like that type of stuff. And I'm not trying to knock anything other than less alive. There's no point where like you're not supposed to feel excited that you're alive. It's like that's what gratitude does. It sort of gives you it gives you a reason to be happy about being here, even if you can't necessarily tangibly grab any reasons like on a particular day. Weird, because when I was outside, I was like, it's beautiful right now. We have finally color back in our area where it's like there's green out every window that I look out. But from such a large part of the year, everything is dead and colorless. And I know I've mentioned that before because it's a huge deal. It's like literally anticipating losing beauty. Like it's beautiful when everything is full of color, and then that changes. And it's like, I feel like that's so similar to how we are as people, because your potential is in no way hindered. Like what's underneath there, the heart space of this reading is so awesome. It's strength. It's like empowerment, and it's all logical. And I feel like you're just someone who tries to grow yourself and own your own actions and grow, like learn and grow. And so it's odd because it even made me, this is so crazy, but it made me think about the last at least 11 years where I've been learning a lot of stuff to do with being a medium. And one of the things that like is really important to me that I didn't understand, what it opened me up to was my ability to learn, because I hadn't really gained that throughout my education. I didn't really think that I could learn the hard stuff that everyone around me may have been learning, because they were maybe being pushed to, or they just like had the energy to focus. I don't know. I doubted my own ability to learn hard stuff. Like I was just out on the porch thinking about getting ready for this reading and this settled feeling. And it was reminding me of not learning physics stuff, not pushing myself to actually make sure I comprehended things, even if it took me way longer than I thought it should. I realize the reason I'm saying it, it's not because I just want to like share it. It's because the reason that was in my mind and I was reflecting to do with this reading was because the only thing that stopped me from learning things that literally tie up loose ends for me now, it was just learning it. It was just reading it, buying a book, being ridiculous enough to myself to be like, well, maybe I can learn that. Maybe I don't have to be a special type of person to buy a physics book or to go Google a question that makes absolutely no sense to me and then like read a whole bunch of stuff and still have no idea what I just read. It took pushing myself to think, okay, I'm going to try it again. Okay, I'm going to read about it again. Maybe I do understand it. I don't know. I'm going to ask another question in a different way. Like, I was reflecting over the fact that the only reason it took because I have a member space. And I'm like, I want to help people know how to be a clearer interpreter as a medium so that they don't have to wait a decade like I do or did to really feel confident in saying, yes, I do know how I'm doing this. Because I was so doubtful of my own ability to do so many normal things that it's like that's what I had to get out of the way before I could just understand, before I could see all the beauty of it. Like physics. It's beautiful. The natural world is beautiful, and that's what it studies. So it's like there's beauty behind all of the words, behind all of that stuff that looked ugly and colorless. Long story. But the whole point of that is that going forward, it's like you have to decide that happiness is still your goal or your goal again. Because looking back isn't it. And there's also a part of this is huge. The reason I feel like this is talking to creatives is because two different reasons. One, this reading is like full of red, which is like full of emotion for me right now. Like in the last few days, it's just emotion is red. And it goes all over. So I feel like your emotional capacity is huge. Passion. Like I feel like this is passionate type of emotional, where you're a large emotional presence when someone experiences you. Ooh, those are the coolest past loved ones, is when like, they're there because they fill a place. They're like everywhere when they're there. So there is also a feeling like in the past, like you have creation or creativity or a talent. I don't know why I'm doing this, but like it's making me think of Dance Moms. I don't watch this, but my daughter watched it at some point because I wanted to show her why we didn't do certain things. But one of the things I'm flashing back to right now is like realizing that all of those girls that were in that show as children, which is the only time I even knew I didn't know they had a presence online after the fact. Anyway, a lot of them I learned don't dance anymore, which is just another part of the world that is weird because, like, for example, I thought of this too to do with this reading. Like, there are so many past loved ones that I am aware of that were super talented and super creative individuals, or super obsessive in the awesome way where they could be like a crazy hyper athlete and, just flourish at whatever they did, but they didn't. Or they stopped at some point because they just didn't see where that fit into their life anymore. So the reason that these two things matter and tie in, like super passionate, emotional, and also super creative, and that's what's missing. It's like the settling left a part of you behind. Like you can't settle without your full self. You've got to be fully present no matter what outcome happens. You have to be full. And that doesn't mean that like looking at life differently after losing after losing an actual person or animal, like anything like that. I'm not minimizing that life is 100% different for some people for the rest of it, like myself included. But it's like the big message is this creative stuff, it's going to make that passion live again. And that passion is still there. That is not a fire because of other people. That's you. And I even wrote this down the other day just to do with my own life. But I'm thinking of it, which was authority comes from within. It comes from in here. So like when we start to get chaotic out here, and like we start to we've got like too many irons in the fire, or we're just balancing a whole bunch of different things. It's like sometimes we can get into the point where we're spread so thin that our needs start to expose themselves. And then when those needs start to expose themselves, we sort of lose our sense of authority. Because we're reaching outward for it, because we need it, but that's because it comes from within. So when we're like really overextending ourselves, then that's why we can start to spew out needs and low frequency stuff from ourselves, because we're like, I'm running out. And you have to rebuild. So this creativity thing, this is the other part. It's like, I feel like I can see someone watching time pass, and I just feel like they're trying to tell you that you have a different choice. Like, you're here. There's time. So, like, what are you waiting for? Because all of this stuff underneath, it's like it needs to go somewhere. And the creative part is, I feel like the passion is supposed to be something that you're experiencing. But this creativity, this is so cool. I just keep seeing it like, if you're really, like if you're detail oriented at something that you care about or that you're good at, this applies to any job you do. Even if you're really good with numbers, or if you're really good at music, or like performing, things like that. Just like really perfecting things to a T, like really having a well-rounded product. This feels like sort of what you do as a creator. Like, okay, I just keep thinking about this, so I'm just going to say it because it probably is going to help. I picture like when I was in high school choir, had a crazy, serious teacher, which are the best ones because she was just obsessed with it being an actual fully polished product by the time it was delivered. And that was the genius of it, but that was also what made it so hard to accomplish if we didn't all have the same goal in mind. So, because that's why she was strict. Because if she wasn't, there wouldn't be enough control placed on it to make sure that everything was running properly. And control is needed. So it's like, this feels like your creativity, your ability to fine-tune your own self is your, like, that is it feels like a replica of your self-control. That is your ability to have self-control. Go. Yeah, okay. So your ability to have self-control is actually not dependent, but it can be like literally, not only can you pull it to the surface and really focus on it, but one of the things I was thinking, like the reason I even mentioned the physics stuff, because I had such a hard time for literally years, even reading about it. Like reading a lot of the deep, I just doubted that I had the ability in my brain to understand it. And I'm just saying, this whole reading, it's like your learning ability, that is motion, that's living. Whoever this reading feels like it's aligned with, like they're encouraging you to learn. And not just to learn, to hone in on something that you already know how to learn and fine tune. It feels so much like pulling out an old, even a skill like even crocheting, or if something you've never done before. You can do anything you've never done before. Like I have like American Sign Language. I just bought a kit one day because it was on sale. And it's like I haven't gotten far into it yet, but whatever we can do to keep the wheels turning, it's like that's being alive. And there's a reason that you have that creativity. It's because you have that passion. That's how you balance it. So maybe in the past, when your passion has come out and you had to hush it back down because it didn't have a place at that time, maybe it's because of the environment. Maybe it's because of where it was being delivered to. And now, later, it feels like you've got clarity and you've got a peace of mind that I think you're going to be able to maintain if you start to dig in there and find out what it is that like you've sort of left pocketed in there that you actually had a really high passion for, and for learning and for perfecting, because it feels like this is like encouraging you to fine tune things that you are capable of, like a craft, and that's going to give you a larger peace than settling. Like it's not supposed to feel settled in the end. You may always miss people or things that you don't get to experience now, but it feels so much like you're going to be able to see the beauty out here again if you can remember that it comes from in here, because that beauty can be kind of intimidating as it comes out. It feels like passion. It feels like it can come out in sort of fire. And when that's in here, if it's stifled, then everything out here is not going to even have the same color. Like it won't be as vibrant because you're a vibrant receiver. How interesting that I just keep thinking about people who are like putting things out there too. So this is about creativity. This is about something that you can pull back out or even just throw in there, because I feel like the large message is to learn. Learning is the wheels turning. If the wheels are turning, then you're learning. It doesn't even have to be something that's perfected. It doesn't have to be with an outcome in mind that's going to be given outside of yourself. It's just about what's inside of you. You don't settle with loss of yourself. Like if you're alive, you've got to live. And it isn't living to stifle like what could be, what you could be feeling. And looking back, this feels like, I'm going to end it, but I feel like looking back it's just time. You're spending time on that. When you're spending time looking back, just remember that that's time you have, and that time is leading into your own future. So it's like, is this how you're going into your future? Like looking backwards? That's what they're saying. That's settling. Changing plans means having something else to look forward to and to move forward with and for. Changing plans is not supposed to mean stop doing anything with it, like with that fire that's underneath. Just because it wasn't received well somewhere doesn't mean that it's without purpose. You know it's not without purpose, because I don't think that you feel fulfilled feeling like it isn't moving. And it also is like a positive growth thing where it's like, that's your next step. Pull it out. Grab hold of that thing that you let go of and start rekindling your own connection to it, because there's a reason for it. Just because there aren't adults telling you to learn certain things and to like be prepared by this day with this or for this event or whatever, like do that for yourself. Sometimes that's what we do. It's like we're looking outside of ourselves for the needs to be fulfilled when our needs are overwhelming. So it's like they're telling you what you need, and what you need is to learn. Like put yourself into something, really immerse yourself into something that you don't feel good at, and work at it. Neat. It makes me think of a thing in my members space about just how important it is to want to know stuff. Instead of just asking, you have to actually want the answer. You have to want to know something, even if it's not the answer you think that might feel good. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that everyone is doing well. Let me know in the comments if this resonates, and I'll see you in the next reading.